Thanks for tuning in to another edition of the OFN Meeting Room on the Lads Football Radio Network. We're going to talk New York Giants football in just a minute. Before we do that, just want to remind everybody to order this. That's the Lads Draft Guide. You can get it now, and you can have it in a couple of days. Even if you get it after the draft, it's still a valuable tool, especially sometimes this is better to get it after the draft, or it doesn't really matter because if your favorite team, you want to know who is on your team. You want to know about those players, and everything you want to know about the players that'll be selected on your team is going to be right here on the draft guide. So ourlads.com, that's where you're going to log in and order the Ourlads Draft Guide, 39 years and counting. Let's talk New York Giants football right now. And let me welcome in Ryan Dunleavy, NFL reporter for the New York Post. Ryan, good to talk to you again.
Hey, thanks for having me.
All right, Ryan. So tell me a little bit about the switch to the New York Post.
I was at NJ.com in the Star Ledger in New Jersey covering the Giants as a beat. That's probably where I was the last time we talked.
Yes.
And left in October to cover both New York teams, the Jets, the Giants, and a little around the NFL type stuff too for the New York Post in October. Obviously, I'm a little biased, but I think the New York Post is the best newspaper sports section in the country. So
I agree. The only one I go to as a Jet fan, I want to check out what's going on with the Jets specifically, of course. I have 3 or 4 papers to choose from, and it's the Post, the only one I go to.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
And I know you also cover the Jets now, so I'm going to ask you maybe a little bit about them at the end of the show, being a Jet fan, and we have our Jet show. And knowing that you cover the Jets now too, I'm going to definitely want to get you on my Jet show, maybe after the draft. But I was told that you're a Brownie connoisseur.
Can you reveal your source?
I don't know if I should. Can you guess my source?
There's only about 7 people who know that.
I'll give you 2 guesses.
Connor Hughes?
Nope.
Andy Vasquez? Really?
Mike K.
Mike K. Yeah, he's one of the 7. Yes. Real quick story is we went out to the Combine a couple years ago. We all had a big dinner. Everybody was eating steaks. I had already eaten. I ordered a brownie sundae and then got a phone call that I had to be somewhere. So I ran out and I figured 10 people splitting the bill for $400. They won't even notice my brownie on there. And everybody's job is paying for it, not them. So I said, nobody's going to care that they got an extra $1 each on their bill. And I was wrong. They all cared quite a bit.
Well, come on. You didn't think they would actually care about an extra $1 on their menu? You should know better than that.
Yeah, I did, sports writer.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Okay, so let's get into the Giants, who have a very valuable pick, 4th pick overall in the draft. It seems that, and I'm not one that like to I don't really like to go in and look at a lot of mock drafts myself. I don't like to do that usually until after I put out my mock draft. And I don't usually put my mock draft out until like the day before. So, but I hear a lot of stuff, and
You're missing about 1 million mock drafts.
Yes. So I hear about a lot of mock drafts. And what I'm hearing about the Giants more than anything is Isaiah Simmons. That's the name that I hear all the time about the Giants. I even heard something about, are the Giants looking for a quarterback? I don't even know where that came from. That's just ridiculous. But Isaiah Simmons seems to be the hot name.
It's funny. I think Isaiah Simmons is the guy the Giants should pick. If I was running the draft, maybe even if Dave Gettleman was running his first draft and not a hot seat draft, I think Isaiah Simmons is the pick that makes the most sense for the Giants. I don't think Isaiah Simmons will be the pick. I think early in the conversation, I thought that, if we're talking around the Combine, early March, I thought it was going to be Isaiah Simmons. The last 3-4 weeks, I just keep hearing offensive tackle. So that's really, let's start with the obvious. I think they want to trade down.
Okay.
I think them and the Lions both want to trade down because there's top 20 depth in this draft that you don't need to pick at 3. If you're picking 3 or 4, you're probably going to get a player just as good at 10 or 11. So, or maybe even 15 or 16. So that would be their preference. I don't think they're going to be able to do it, especially if the Lions are able to do it. That makes the Giants' chances of doing it minuscule. But I think it'll be an offensive tackle. Which one, we can get into that. But I don't think it'll be Simmons, even though I think he'll be the highest graded player on the board. Dave Gettleman told me this week that if you have a guy who's a 98, but you have a guy who's a 96 at a position of need, he doesn't consider that a reach. You could take the 96. You can't take an 88. You can't go 10 points off, but you could drop 2 points off to fill a need. And offensive tackle is the huge need on this team.
Yeah, I actually thought early on in the process myself, when I looked at these offensive tackles, at least the top 4 guys, that they were all going to go in the top 10. I thought that was a given. I know there's a lot of potential of these quarterbacks going higher than as usual. If Love enters the top 10, that is, and the other 2 guys stay in the top 10 with Burrow. But early on, the talk of offensive tackles, because that's really the way that I think, let's just put it this way. I think general managers are starting to get smarter. They realize how hard it is to find good offensive linemen. And these guys are all quality players, and I just can't see any of them slipping out of the top 10. I guess there's a shot, maybe Becton, because of what happened just recently. But other than that, I mean, they're so valuable.
I think it's top 11. I think the Jets will get one.
Agreed.
Top 10, top 11, it's kind of splitting hairs. But if not, if you're a Jets fan like you or anybody listening, I think they'll all be gone by 11. I think all 4 will be gone by 11. The crazy thing is they're all good players, like you said, but I don't know that there's like a Joe Thomas, Hall of Fame, Orlando Pace kind of guy. I just think they're all like, good 10-year quality starters in the NFL. And while that's a good thing, that makes it hard, because if you're the Giants, you have to get this right.
Yeah, you're the first one probably, yeah.
Correct. And even you could get a good player and end up losing out on a Hall of Fame player. You could get a bad player and get a good player. You're the one who has to make this choice. And look, that's what you get paid to do. They all want to make the choice. They all would rather have their choice than have to settle for whoever's left. But it's almost easier for the Jets, because it's like, okay, well, there's going to be one left. That's the guy we're going to get.
Yeah.
We're not going to have a say. The Giants are going to have to sit down and say, do we want the guy with the highest ceiling, Mekhi Becton? Do we want the guy who's the most ready today, Jedrick Wills? Do we want the guy who might be an all-pro at guard if he doesn't work out at tackle, Tristan Wirfs? Do we want sometimes it's so hard for me to keep them all straight. I know I'm missing one.
Thomas.
Andrew Thomas, the guy with the most left tackle experience. He might not be the best prospect, but if we want a left tackle and not a right tackle, he's the one that requires the least projection, right? Wills played right tackle. Wirfs played right tackle. If we want a left tackle, it's Thomas. So it's all these different ways to go, and then how you grade them, which one you want. You're looking long-term, you're looking short-term. That's where Gettleman's job security comes into play. It's a tough decision. Even if you want to go offensive tackle, it's a tough decision. Unlike, say, when you wanted to go running back 2 years ago, you knew it was Saquon.
What about what has the Becton news that's come out over the last few days? Do you sometimes it just ends up benefiting certain teams because it scares away a few other teams, and the other teams just sit there and go, "Oh, I'm taking this guy because I don't care about whatever I just heard. I've done my due diligence. I know the guy's got great upside. I'm taking him anyway. Thank you for passing on him."
Yeah, I mean, it's the Laremy Tunsil factor. It's not quite the same. This is a sample at the combine versus the bong match or whatever.
Yeah.
But how'd that work out for the Dolphins? The Giants end up passing on Tunsil because they're afraid of that. They end up drafting Eli Apple, who busts out. They have to trade him, so they waste a top 10 pick. Tunsil actually plays well for the Dolphins, and they get traded to the Texans for a first-round pick. So the Dolphins, took the chance, or whatever you would want to say, didn't really care about the character concern, and they get rewarded for it. And the Giants. So I mean, that's the way the NFL. That's the way the cookie crumbles in the NFL. Look, the Giants are a conservative organization. What happened with Apple and Tunsil isn't going to change that. 100 years of history isn't going to change that. I don't know that they were as high on Mekhi Becton as some reporters are, just to begin with. And then you add this factor, and I don't think he is the Giants pick at all.
Okay. And see, the thing with Simmons is, I guess that's intriguing about him is that he is one of those rare players. It's his ability at that position and the multifaceted way that he could work for a defense. It doesn't come around very often. But like you said, if the Giants were to trade down, there's still, yeah, you have your top four offensive linemen, then you have about three or four other offensive linemen that can go like between 13 and 25,
Yeah,
but there's only one Isaiah Simmons in the draft class. That's it.
correct. And look, the Giants need him. I mean, their defense has been 24th or worse in the NFL 6 of the last 8 years. Their projected starting 11 defense. They have 6 former first or second round picks. They have 6 guys who are homegrown guys. And they only have one guy who's ever made a Pro Bowl, and that's one Pro Bowl in his life. That's Leonard Williams, and that's a guy the fan base just can't tolerate because they think he's overpaid and underachieves. And he's their best defensive player. So Isaiah Simmons would instantly come in and be the best defensive player on the Giants, the guy opponents have to game plan for. Here's the thing, though. I've had multiple people say this to me about Isaiah Simmons. If you're going to draft Isaiah Simmons, you better be a coaching staff that is new age thinking, that is not going to pencil in Isaiah Simmons and say he's our middle linebacker, or our outside linebacker, or our safety. This is our depth chart. We're going to put 10 guys around him at safety. No, you cannot do that. You have to let him play to his strengths. That's what makes him a unique player. You have to let him have 20 plays a game where he is in coverage, 20 plays a game where he's, stopping the run, 5 blitzes. You have to work your other 10 players around him. That takes a certain level of creativity. It takes a certain level of scheme flexibility. It takes trust in your other 10 players not to screw up their assignment when it changes because they have to cover for Simmons doing something that he doesn't normally do. It's a nice thing to say, right? Like every coach says he's flexible. Every coach says he's going to, right? You have to actually be able to do it. And I know they all think that they're going to be able to do it, but really you have to know if you can, if you have the personality to, if you can personally, if your other 10 players can, and if you can't, then don't pick Isaiah Simmons because you're wasting him by putting him in the same spot 60 plays a game.
Well, segue that to the new coaching staff. Is Patrick Graham, do you think he might be one of those guys?
I mean, look, that's what they say, right? He's from the New England school, but the Dolphins' defense wasn't good last year, right? Nope. I think they were 31st in the NFL in defense. Now, look, they didn't have a ton of talent, but the Giants don't have a ton of talent. So he's working with similar players.
Yeah.
I think that's the idea, right? The idea is that he wants to be scheme versatile. We see that with the Patriots. Joe Judge wants that, the positionless players, whatnot. Like a Jamie Collins kind of role with the Patriots. I get that. But I can't get past 2 years ago, they hired James Bettcher. I thought it was a steal. Look, this guy had 3 straight top 7 defenses with the Cardinals. He got let go because they hired Steve Wilks, who was a defensive guy. He wanted his own defensive coordinator. So I thought the Giants stole James Bettcher. I said, this guy's going to be great for this defense. He's aggressive. He's a blitzer, etc. And then the Giants were terrible on defense for 2 years in a row. Did James Bettcher suddenly forget how to coach? No, the Giants didn't have good enough players. Then you hear whispers that his system was too hard for young players to learn and he didn't adapt enough. Is that excuse making? I don't know. You just hear that. You wonder if the Giants struggle again. Well, you hear that about Patrick Graham. Eventually, it's not the coordinator's fault. Yep. So I guess we'll have to see. Look, Patrick Graham was here as a position coach for a couple years. Everybody in the Giants is familiar with him besides, before Joe Judge brought him in. So if they weren't comfortable with him, the ownership and the people around, some players who are still here from them, then he wouldn't be here. So they obviously have some trust in his ideas.
And Judge, pretty much, of course, he comes from the special teams unit. So we would guess that the special teams are going to work out pretty well, but his ability as a head coach, that's just obviously a mystery at this point in time. The fans pretty happy about the hire?
You know what? It's funny, right? At the time, no one thought Joe Judge was going to be on January 5th, no one thought Joe Judge was going to be the Giants head coach, right? It seemed like a token interview, like Belichick and the Giants ownership are very close. Belichick almost saying, hey, give this guy an interview, get his name out there so next year he can get So next year he's had some experience and he could be a hot candidate next year. Or the Giants saying to Bill, hey, we just want to do our due diligence. Who's your next guy that you're grooming? Who's the next Patricia, Charlie Weiss, Romeo, whoever that, whoever's coming off your staff next? Let's at least interview that guy so we don't miss out on him. And, the favorites were Mike McCarthy and Matt Rule. And then all of a sudden it's Joe Judge. And I think the initial reaction was, wait, who is this guy?
Yeah.
Who did we hire? Did we just got, like our fifth choice? We got beat out by the Panthers and the Cowboys. And then I think over the last 4 months, I think Giants fans have really grown to like him because he comes off really well. He comes off smart. He comes off very prepared. He comes off as the kind of guy that this franchise really needs. It's kind of who you need to whip into shape when you have the worst record in the NFL over the last 3 seasons, like the Giants do. They have the fewest wins over the last 3 seasons. They haven't won a playoff game since they won Super Bowl 46. So really, they need somebody in this mold. Will he be able to do it? I don't know. I mean, look, I thought that Ben McAdoo had a great first year and then got fired before his second year ended. So you just never know how these kind of things are going to play out. But I don't think the job will be too big for him. I think ended up being for McAdoo at the time. I don't think the job will be too big for him. We got to see how he actually does on Sundays.
What about Jason Garrett? I mean, the ties make sense, but I don't know. You just talked about the defense, and you have to be up to school, up to par with all the new age ways of taking advantage of defensive schemes today, and the same thing on offense. And you got a head coach that, I don't know. I mean, it wasn't exactly like Jason Garrett was being touted as this great mastermind on offense when he left the Cowboys, but he just couldn't coach as a head coach. So I don't know, was this a big surprise that he's going to run the offense?
No, because that's how the Giants want to play, right? Like we all say, you have to play like the Chiefs, right? You have to throw the ball around 100 times a game and let your quarterback run and do all kinds of crazy Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes stuff. That's not how the Giants want to play. Like, that's not who Gettleman is. That's not who John Mara is. They want to play like it's, 1990.
Old school.
Like it's 2007
sure.
when they NFL in rushing. They want to dictate the line of scrimmage with their offensive line. They want to pound the ball with their running back. They want to, throw the ball to the tight end. They're not looking to, throw 45 passes a game. Even when they had Eli Manning, that's not what they were looking to do. So they're certainly not looking to do that with Daniel Jones. They want to play defense, control the line of scrimmage, run the ball. It's, gets mocked a lot because it's like, can that style still win in the NFL? Well, the Titans got pretty far playing that style of football. The Giants just aren't as good as the Titans.
Sure.
But that's kind of what they want to be. They just need better players.
Especially along the offensive line, which is really where we all started this conversation. And not just do they need an offensive tackle, but isn't that center position a pretty big spot as well?
Yeah, right. So right now where they're at is they have Spencer Pulley, who's started 20-something games in his career on the roster. John Halapio, the starter the last 2 years, is a free agent right now. Tore his Achilles in the final couple minutes of the season, which was devastating, and is unsigned right now. I think the Giants, if he heals up right, I think the Giants will sign him and give him a chance, in June or July if we have a training camp, if we have a season. But I certainly look for the Giants to address center, if not in the second round, in the third round or the fourth round. If Matt Hennessy or Cesar Ruiz or Cushenberry from LSU is available at pick 36, that's certainly a possibility. If not, somebody, maybe the Wisconsin center in the third round. I certainly think the Giants will address center in this draft. They really did nothing with it in the free agency, and that won't happen.
Okay, quickly wrap up offense with is Engram the answer at tight end? I'm hearing conflicted reports about how. I heard something about a potential. Is he on the trade market? That kind of thing, and also at wide receiver, Slayton came out of nowhere in a sense. Big play guy, but this is such a great class of receivers. You would think the Giants might be interested in adding another guy there.
Yeah, so I'll start with the receivers. I do think the Giants will add one because here's the state of the receiving core right now. Golden Tate, who pretty much has no guaranteed money after this year and is in his early 30s, so very possible this is his last year with the Giants.
Okay.
Sterling Shepard, who signed to a long-term deal but has now had two concussions last year. I think 3 in his NFL career, some in college, some in high school. So it's his health is a concern. His long-term health is a concern. For him as a person, not just for the Giants. Darius Slayton, obviously, and then they have Corey Coleman. They're taking a flyer on him, former first-round pick who hasn't really done much in his NFL career. I think with this receiver class is so deep that you can get a legitimate starter, slot guy, impact rookie in the 4th or 5th round. So yeah, I think after they address center, after they address tackle, after they address some sort of pass rusher at linebacker or defensive end, then I think yes, wide receiver becomes that like 4th or 5th need that I think you'll see early day 3 for them with the depth of this draft. I definitely think they'll get one, especially after hitting on Slayton. I think they saw, you can really, I think they feel like they have something with Slayton. I think they'll be looking to replicate that. And then tight end with Evan Ingram, it's a great mystery, right? Like the Giants do not love Evan Ingram. They just don't. They're not high on him because they think he gets injured too much, which he does. I mean, he gets injured a lot. When he's on the field, he's a really productive player. He's one of the top 6, 7 receiving tight ends in the game. He's a matchup nightmare. The problem is when he's asked to block 40, 50 plays a game, his body, he's just not built like that. He's not built like a 40, 50 block play tight end. He's getting better as a blocker every year, but that's not his strength. So you need to pair him up and complement him with a good blocking tight end. Red Ellison retired. The Giants signed Levine Toilolo from the 49ers to kind of fill that spot. But the Giants are at a crossroads with Ingram, right? They have to they have to decide on his 5th-year option for 2021 by 2 weeks from now. And he was still in a walking boot only a month ago after offseason Liz Frank surgery on his foot, which those are very hard to come back from at full strength. So look, before that it was his knee. Before that it was a concussion. Like he's just had a long history of having a hard time staying healthy. But if you ask around the NFL, who are the Giants game breakers? It goes Saquon Barkley, and then a big drop, and then Evan Ingram. He's the second guy.
Yep.
So to just toss him away for like a 3rd or a 4th round pick doesn't make any sense. The bottom line, this whole conversation, the Giants don't have enough good players.
Yeah, exactly.
Evan Ingram is a good player.
Yeah.
Therefore, do not get rid of Evan Ingram.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I'm going to go ahead then and close out by asking you, and we'll talk about, I know you got to run, so we'll talk a little bit more about the Jets. I'll get you on the Jets show after the draft. That'd be great to get you on.
I got a couple minutes.
Okay. I did want to ask you then, first of all, give me your pick for the Giants if they don't trade down.
Oh, good question. I'm between Jedrick Wills from Alabama, Tristan Wirfs from Iowa, and Andrew Thomas from Georgia.
Definitely a tackle.
Yes, definitely a tackle. Right now, from everything I'm hearing right now, I'm going to lean towards Tristan Wirfs from Iowa.
Yeah, I think I like Wirfs the most. I know our lads likes Wirfs the most as well. I don't always agree with everything our lads does. Listen to our lads more than me, of course, but Dan Shanka. But yeah, Wirfs, I think he's got the biggest upside.
Yeah, of those 3, I think he has the biggest upside. Becton probably has the biggest upside.
Yeah, Becton is like, and the thing too with Becton is, and the Giants, and I was going to bring this up too, is that every year, whenever we talk about the draft for Gettleman, and this goes back years with Dan Shanka, we always talk about how much Gettleman, if he's going at a specific position, he's always going to go for size.
Yeah.
And Becton is the biggest guy.
Yep.
So I still think there might be, though, again, with the combine test, all that, maybe that's enough to say, why would I even remotely put myself in that spot when I could take worse?
Yeah. And then Jets wise, I think it comes down to the fourth offensive tackle
Yep.
or probably the first or second receiver. Like maybe Jacksonville takes one of the receivers, but you're going to have at least two of, maybe all three of Ruggs, Lamb,
Yes.
and Judy, and one offensive tackle. Just on how Joe Douglas operates, I don't know him as well as I know Gettleman, but just on how he operated this whole offseason so far, I think it'll be the tackle. I think, with you basically look at it
too.
like if I take a receiver, then who's going to be there at tackle when I pick in the second round? If I take a tackle, who's going to be there at receiver? I think you almost let your second round pick, the depth at receiver, dictate your first pick.
Yes. I mean, he'll salivate if he can get one of those top receivers like everybody else will. But like you said, there's just so many other good receivers he could pick up in the second round. And he could still wind up with maybe his number one receiver in the second round. That's how deep the class is. And Douglas also, like Gettleman, even though, like you said, Gettleman, his history might be different. But I got to tell you right now, I've talked to a lot of people, a lot of interviews before the draft, and I'd say 90% are talking about trading down. It seems like everybody wants to trade down.
I think both the Giants and the Jets will be. I think there's a good chance both make a trade in either of the first two rounds. Like the Giants trade either 4 or 36, the Jets trade either 11 or 48. I think there's a good chance that happens.
Great job, Ryan. I really appreciate it. And again, I'll look forward to getting your take maybe after the draft on both the Giants and the Jets. So, and best of luck with everything going on over at the New York Post.
Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Ryan.